Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.
Hello, and welcome to the show. Colourful Conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark. This week we debate Kanye West and the slavery comment.
Yeah.
Well, US rapper Kanye West has said the enslavement of African Americans over centuries may have been a choice. And what he said was, when you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice, he said during an appearance on entertainment site TMZ. We're mentally imprisoned, the star added. He recently also hit the headlines for his incredible support for Donald Trump. Yes, controversy. Well, Kanye West has never really been out of the limelight for many reasons. In fact, he's often put his foot in his mouth several times. So here's a little thought. Yes, Kanye. Kanye West did his best to drive his career north, and as he took to the stage, his fans soon came forth. But Kanye proved he's out of tune, and fortune soon turns south. His ignorant slave jibe give bad vibe when he opens his mouth. Yes, yeah. Kanye West, I wonder what's next in store for us. So, Clergyman Pete, I just want to know your opinion on this. Do you think that Kanye West is out of tune, and should he have even mentioned anything about slavery? Is he just totally out of touch?
Well, I think that he's not out of touch totally. I think he is a little confused in what he says, and tends to say thoughts rather than say planned utterances. I mean, there's a difference between saying your thoughts directly without any sort of filter and planning what to say. And the Bible is pretty clear that you should look after the people around you, look after your reputation by keeping a hold of your tongue. And it seems to me that Kanye West, who has said that he is a Christian and has produced some Christian lyrics, he doesn't seem to have studied that. Here's one. It is Proverbs 18:21. The tongue can bring death or life, and those who love to talk will reap the consequences. He loves the sound of his own voice. He Indeed. Says things that are really you are better not said, or at least not said in public with millions of people listening.
Yeah.
Some of the things he said, you can imagine saying yourself, if it was just your best friend listening. Sort of like when we're talking off air, Mark. We think, well, we're not going to say that with everyone listening. It's very, in fact, we're in many ways very similar to Kanye West, but perhaps that's the most.
So many ways. Well, we're completely out of tune. We can't hold a note.
Well, there's that
Maybe
too.
not.
Yes, yeah. So
subjective, I know.
Yeah. So that's what I'd say about him.
Well,
however, I did have when I first heard his slavery comment on the TMZ channel show, whatever it is, and he was chatting away there. You could see that he wasn't trying to make a definitive statement. He was just sort of riffing on the idea, and I thought I could see what he meant. I wasn't offended by it. Now, before I go further, I'll just say that some people would say, "Well, why should you be offended? You're not black." And there's two problems with that. One is, well, all slaves aren't black. What sort of statement is that? But that is often an assumption that's made.
And we'll explore that a little bit more.
But also, but another assumption is that because I'm, if we're talking about black slaves, the fact that I'm not black means I wouldn't be offended on their behalf. Well, actually, it doesn't matter what colour they are, what their race is. I don't want them to be. I don't want them to be enslaved, and I don't want them to be insulted either.
No.
So, but I didn't take it that way. That's what I'll say at this
Well,
stage.
what I was going to ask was, is that should he have even brought up the subject? I mean, it wasn't even as though he really needed to. I mean, he did go to social media, and on Twitter, he brought out a tweet that said he'd been misinterpreted and that he brought up the 400 years point because we can't be mentally imprisoned for another 400 years. Now, what I'm concerned about here is two things. I mean, this is a man who is widely followed by millions of people across the globe who follow his music, whether you like it or not, but he has great following. Does he really need to be bringing up these sort of comments? And I think that whether he just simply got it wrong, he made a comment, as you say, his sort of verbal
diarrhea. You can say it, verbal diarrhea. Yes, yeah.
I was going to go in the diarrhea way, but I was trying to avoid it. But let's be honest, it didn't come out very well. And clearly, a lot of people, particularly in the black communities, have been very, very upset with him. Yeah. So I know another one of your great heroes, will.i.am, who is, of course, also a black rap artist, well known, eminent in his field, has been mortally offended by what he described as ignorant Kanye remarks. Yes. Now, I think that my bigger point to this is that should people in this sort of capacity be commenting about such sensitive issues? Now, the other thing as well I don't want to lead to is slavery, as you say, isn't just around what happened in the Americas. Exactly, because whilst we know that for many centuries, black people were enslaved during the 17th, 18th, 19th century, etc., Not that was good, but of course we have to also look to other parts of the world, whether that's the Middle East, India, and many other places.
Yeah. I mean, it is a good point. I mean,
do you think that he should even be going down this subject?
Well, as to whether he should be going there, I think I'm glad someone's bringing it up. And as I first took it, I'm Kanye West, as you say, has verbal diarrhea, and there's perhaps a subject for another show as to whether the entire genre of rap and hip hop is just simply a giant case of verbal diarrhea that's been caught by a whole culture. That's perhaps for another day, but the just losing half our audience there. I was only joking. I was a comeback. No, the I would say that the fact that Kanye West can address this issue, I think is a good. I think it's good that it's brought up. The fact that people were offended is not in itself a problem. You take offence, more than it's given. You decide to be offended. But the problem was the lack of clarity in what he was saying.
Yeah.
As I was starting to say earlier, and I'll just finish the point now. I saw what he was saying, or I heard what he was saying, was that people talk about there being 400 years of slavery. So when he said it, it was as though he was quoting it, something that was often said. 400 years of slavery, like a slogan. And I believe that is the case. And people, such as people like Black Lives Matter, are claiming that the slavery continues. Whereas, of course, it doesn't. Yes, you could argue that the African-American enslavement and taking across the Atlantic to America began 400 years ago in 1618, was the time it started. But then it did end in 1865. So, I mean, what we have is 260 years odd of 250 to 260 years of enslavement, and then they were freed. So then it does eventually become a choice. When you not straight away. I'll come back to just a brief comment that I think would have, if he'd have put it like this, I'll put it how I thought he should have said it in a moment, but I would just say that, so I took it like that he was saying, well, being a slave, seeing yourself as a slave now is a choice, because now, there is considerable freedom, although there are racial abuse cases, you have equal rights as a black person and white person in America. But he didn't quite mean that. He didn't quite mean that. He then put a tweet out, supposedly explaining himself, saying that that his comment about the 400 years was, with us having the numbers, remaining a slave was the choice. Having the numbers, as though having a greater number of slaves meant that you had a way of stopping it.
Yeah.
That seems to that doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you're held in shackles and they've got the guns, it doesn't matter how many of them you've got. Anyway, but the point I would make now is, what I'm trying to say now is, this is how, if he'd said this right originally, people would have thought, yeah, fine. If he said 400 years, and he went on to say, that sounds like it's a choice to remain a slave now, given that it's a long time since blacks were enslaved in America. But when they set the slaves free, they gave them no land and resources. So you can understand it.
Yeah. Well,
if he'd have just said it that, and I think that he doesn't know that. I think that many people don't on both sides. Some people are going on about, that we still are enslaved today to a certain extent, and other people are saying, no, but they were set free. But the point was, if you're going to set someone free, they need to be able to live. If they'd just given them some land each, then I don't think there would be the issues today.
Well, I think that my point is that clearly it's an important subject. It's a really sensitive subject in many, many countries as well. But should he even be going there? The other thing as well that we just want to sort of conclude on this point is, of course, he compounded all of the criticism with in the same interview, in fact, as referring to Donald Trump as my boy, and says that the president is one of rap's favorite people. Now, of course, that in itself suddenly took many people to Twitter to comment about his judgment, and I think it's about judgment. Why go down a route where you're naturally going to cause a lot of controversy? I think he didn't think his subject through. And I think that probably he's now having to backtrack. He's having to qualify what he says. Clearly, if you're having to keep qualifying what you say, clearly you've got it wrong in the first place. So
yes, he for someone who is known for lyricism is very poor at just choosing his words. But he's correct that, I mean, Trump, what he should have said is, Trump was very popular, one of the most popular names in rap. He was sort of an icon, and they would use his name favourably to talk about someone who was rich. If you're going to make money, you're going to be Trump. You're going to do a Trump by making lots of money. So he was extremely popular, and I suppose it's reasonable for him to say, I'm not going to ditch Trump just because you lot don't like him.
Indeed.
Which is fair enough. If he'd have left it at that, then I think he would still be, and this is the key thing, he would still be having a huge problem with the media getting at him, because the mainstream media hate Trump. But he wouldn't have such a problem of, people, his friends within the hip hop rap community turning on him.
Do you believe that this will be damaging for his career as a result of coming out with these slavery comments?
Well, I don't think that that's the issue. Here's what you say, don't go there. I think that what will linger is his saying that he loved Trump. Oh,
you think that's going to be more damaging?
I think so, because he needs the mainstream media. He's a mainstream sort of guy, isn't he?
Yes.
He's backed by being
the reason I say
I think if they ditch him, he's in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I say this is that I know that you've probably been following his career for quite some time. Yes, I mean, he really sort of came to fame through as a rap artist, doing lots of collaborations with lots of other people in that music genre. One of his first pieces of music was "Through the Wire," which happened in 2003, and he had many hits. I mean, probably his big one was 2005, which is called the Gold Digger. This was featuring Jamie Foxx, incidentally, and I know that this is something that, Clergyman Pete, that you very much hum along to as you're strutting about going to your churches.
Perhaps one of my favourite songs of all time.
Stronger was another one.
You don't need to tell me. I'm so familiar with it. Well, I have to say, I mean, gentle listener, I must admit that when I heard that Kanye West was saying strange comments, I was vaguely aware of who he was.
Yes.
But I could not remember
But you're not
anything,
with the
any
Jesus
song.
Walks, which he came out with in 2004. I mean, I would have thought that would have been right up your street.
Well, yeah, but I just
the reason I'm
couldn't
saying
remember
all of this is that the last major hit, I would say, ironically, was a collaboration with Rihanna and Paul McCartney, 4 or 5 seconds. Now that got into the top 5, both in the US and also in the United Kingdom. But his career seems to be slightly on the wane, and I just wonder whether, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that this is a tactic, but clearly by the nature of his outlandish comments and behaviours, I mean, who can? Nobody's going to forget when he jumped onto the stage and grabbed the award from the artist. What's her name? The lady.
We're really hot on pop music here. So just tune in for the latest. Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift, who looked absolutely shell-shocked when he jumped on stage.
Yes, and he was oft quoted for that.
He thought that Rihanna, was it Beyonce, who should have
yes,
won.
He thought someone else would have won. Yeah, he said, I'm going to let you finish. And people would, that became a phrase, wasn't it? I'm going to let you finish, but then say the opposite. Yeah, but of course, before we close,
is he just a genius? And actually, he's just got everybody talking about him.
Well,
and it's all just a ruse.
That's the thing. As I was saying, I think the most dangerous thing is the Trump thing in terms of his music career. But if that's not his aim, if his aim is what he said, was this maybe 2 years ago? Certainly about the time that Trump was becoming political. He said Kanye West, was going to run for president.
Well, I was going to say delusions of grandeur spring to mind, because on some interviews he's claimed that he is God. So I would like to get your opinion on whether that's true or not as a clergyman. And as you rightly say, that I suppose if he is of that ilk, that if he does run for president in years to come, what would the world look like? Yeah,
but the thing is, I think from what he said and from his comments, he may well lean Republican, So if he went on the Republican ticket in not 2020, if presuming Trump's go there, although maybe he should be the VP candidate. But actually, I mean, this now serious comment. I think for listeners here will know that I'm being completely serious here. I would say that rather than having Kanye West as his VP, there's a far better strategy that Trump could have. He could just get Mike Pence to black up. I think that would do it.
That would not be controversial in the slightest, of course. But I mean, coming back to the key thing here is that the interesting point about slavery is a sensitive issue in many areas. Now, I'm going to take Britain as being one of them, because there's been a lot of commentary, particularly historians have been talking about what the British were about, because as you know, a lot of the economy was based around buying and selling slaves, etc. And this is something that, ironically, when we look at the 21st century, there are still people enslaved today, even in Britain, where perhaps some immigrants have got through the system and sadly are being exploited. This has come out in the news fairly recently in the last couple of years. Then we look to the Middle East, places where actually people again are trapped because they just simply have very little choice. They're paid very little, or possibly don't even have any money, and then they're doing menial jobs to the point where actually they're exploited. If we look at places like India, I mean, many people also have issues there where perhaps some people feel that they're in an enslaved environment. Yes, sure. So I want to ask that actually the irony behind all of this, although there is some amusing elements to what Kanye West has said, the one thing that it has done is it has put the lens on where perhaps there are still some issues about slavery. And although we don't typically tend to think of that in modern society, because most people feel that they've got freedom of choice, and I think that probably is true for the majority, but there are still pockets where, even in Africa again, there are places where people don't have choice. So I just want to ask your comment just as we sort of close out the show. I mean, what do you think there? Do you think actually, ironically, there is some good that could come from this conversation?
Well, as I've been trying to say, I don't think he was wrong to go there in the sense of talking about slavery. As I said, the alignment with Trump, I think, is more harmful to his mainstream media entertainment side. But if he's still pursuing that route, but bringing up slavery, I think, is a good thing, because what happens is the idea of slavery gets swallowed up in the slavery that ended in 1865, and people ignore the fact that it happened now, that slavery was always wider than that, and that it happened before. I mean, the word slave comes from Slav, as in Slavic people. I mean, because the Slavs, who were white, of course, were known as being enslaved. So it's not even simply a black thing. It's not racial. It's
Correct.
just simply a worldwide problem, and it is still a problem. In fact, America doesn't officially sanction it. Slavery as it occurs in the US is now underground, and often with immigrants coming into the country, bringing their slaves in. The slavery is far more prevalent out of America. America doesn't have the slavery problem that they have in India, in the Middle East, and in other countries in the world. And so we need to shine the light, but let's turn it away, as Kanye West's comments might well do, if taken in the right way, from something that's over now.
Yep. Well, listeners, what do you think about this subject? Very sensitive, we know, but let us hear your thoughts. I mean, do you believe that Kanye West's comment about enslavement of African Americans was a valid one? Perhaps you might agree with what he said, or maybe you might disagree. Why not log on to markandpete.com and listen to the podcasts? There's a lot of good subjects covering this and many other subjects for you to be entertained by. And give us your comments as well. Click on the comments panel and let us know your thoughts. Well, thanks for listening, and join us again for colourful conversations with Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark. And that's a wrap.